Welcome to the J.R. Hendrick Texan Consort. Today, Jimmy is going to record this short adventure. "3 p.m. Jim Bob and Brad come to give JR the ride back to Lubbock. They ordered Taco Villa for them, and they sped off in Jim Bob's family Pontiac van back toward Lubbock. 4 p.m. In Chicago, Jim and Claude are alone in the hotel room as Greg and Norma Sanders cover a healthcare rally with Hillary Clinton at the Northwestern Interfaith Chapel. 4:40 p.m. Back at the ranch, Kyle comes back from the cattle auction with $27,000 in tow. He gives his mother $20,000 of it and keeps the other $7,000 to pay for utilities for his house. He returns to his house, where Madison is playing Courtney Love on the radio. Meanwhile, Betsy has a longing for Jim and JR. She had to go pick up Elizabeth from her chemotherapy, and now they're watching TV. 5 p.m. Arriving at the Hendrick family condo, JR and his friends are greeted by Courtney, one of the servants, to make them cheeseburgers. They settle in. Jim Bob Horton would return back to Odessa later on tonight, and Brad would return home as well. 6 p.m. In Chicago, Jim looks down at the rain as Greg and Norma Sanders return to the hotel in the rain, soaked streets. Mrs. Hillary Clinton had gone ahead and went to the Rodham estate. Jim knows the president is with his mistress and best friend in the White House. Tomorrow, he and the Sanders would fly off to New York City. 6:10 p.m. Meanwhile, back at the condo, JR puts in the VCR the David Barton video he received from Karen, Education and the Founding Fathers. With his ThinkPad, JR takes copious notes. 7:20 p.m. JR is writing the first page of his term paper as Jim Bob Horton discusses his ideas from the treatise of Samuel Adams on government of the Bible or the bayonet. Meanwhile, back in Chicago, Jim has already smoked 2 cigars. Claude has called in a call girl for him. Jim was drunk off the wine and feeling no pain. Tomorrow, they had to leave early for New York City. 7:50 p.m. Jim Bob Horton leaves, dropping Brad off at his house. JR calls to tell Karen that he's staying the night at the condo, and that's where he can pick him up at church. The 28th of December, the 28th and 29th of December passed by privately. On the morning of November 30th at 2:25 a.m., JR wakes up with a bad cough. Yesterday had not been fun. No thanks to the statistics review, but also because of the dressing down he received from his father for his finances and continuing to date Karen Kreider. He is angry that his father has once again left his mother and family behind to chase the dream of a political appointee. But on the bright side, Kim told JR that he would be there after he returned home to the ranch to hang out with more. This JR knew would be to the consternation of his father. 4 a.m. JR goes into the dorm study room to wrap out his term paper for government class due tomorrow. He still can't get past the stinging rebuke of his father. So he turns that energy into cranking out a good term paper. One thing that was helping him with his ideology paper was a book given to him by his tutor called The Bulletproof George Washington. JR had been reading it since yesterday. 6:35 a.m. JR is having breakfast at TMC at Wiggins' house with Brent Clark and Charlie Nation. I'm sorry, JR, but you have to know, Charlie said, that your father doesn't care about anything but power. That's not strictly true, Charlie, Brent said. He's letting JR go to school. He's telling JR have his own political philosophy. That should count to something. Look, okay. So you've seen JR's family in action. But do you know what I know? Jim Hendrick is expecting his wife JR's mother to follow him lock, stock, and barrel in the expense of JR's needs. Meanwhile, Kyle is a golden boy, which leaves JR and Christine holding the bag. Christine is going to get pregnant before she turns 20. You watch. JR gets angry. You watch what you say about my sister, Charlie. I can't hang with you as long as you have these crazy ideas. 8:14 a.m. Eastern. Greg and Norma had already gone off to JFK Airport for Chuck Bates to fly them to San Jose, California, where they would be covering Hillary Clinton on her last healthcare stop before Christmas. Jim and Claude dined of coffee, cigarettes, and cinnamon rolls. They would be leaving on the 1:40 flight from JFK to El Paso. Jim and Claude would pay for the chartered jet. 8 a.m. JR meets with Karen Kreider at the Student Union near the library. They each get a Coke and talk. Something is wrong. What is it? Karen asked. I got a tongue lashing last night from my father, Jared said. That makes two of us, Karen said. My mother is driving me absolutely crazy. And I'm not looking forward to Christmas with her this year, Karen said. And also, Brad won't stop smothering me. I care about you, Karen. We need each other, Gerald said. Well, I don't know. I can't think that far in advance. Say, how about after I turn in my public speaking term paper, you and I go on a date? That sounds good. Sure, why not? I like you, Karen Kreider. I even love you. Coming from you, that means a lot. (9:25 a.m.) Back at the ranch, Elizabeth is watching live with Regis and Kathy Lee when a press conference interrupted it. President Clinton was getting ready to sign the Brady handgun bill. Go ahead, Slick Willie, Elizabeth yelled at the TV. Take away the guns from us Texans. Put your damn luck. Meanwhile, outside, Betsy and Kyle are rounding up cattle for an evening auction in Fort Stockton. 30% of the cattle was to be sold today, especially those beyond calf-bearing age. 10:30 a.m. Meanwhile, in New York's Jim and Claude check out of their hotel and climb aboard the airport shuttle that would take them to JFK. They'd stop off at a club restaurant before getting on the plane to go to El Paso. (9:50 a.m.) At the foreign language lab, JR is studying with Jennifer for the Spanish final, which would be on Monday. Tonight would be the final review in public speaking where John McCone would talk about the final parameters for the 30-minute speech paper. 11 a.m. Eastern. Jim and Claude walk into the restaurant club bar at JFK and order 2 cognacs and cheeseburgers.